Welcome to the Prep Huddle podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside Jeff Johnson for our preview of this week's semifinal action that began Wednesday afternoon with 8-player games. 11-man football or 11-player football begins on Thursday and extends into Saturday evening. With berth in the finals on the line. JJ, we're dome bound now.
Which is apparently a good thing looking at the forecast, Pilch. So,
yeah, good timing.
Yeah, I mean this is awesome. As we're recording this, I think the eight-player semifinals are underway. So, this is great. It's my favorite. I love the semifinals. I don't know about you. I love them even really maybe a little bit more than championship games, just because there's so many multiple days of this going on, and still 4 teams in each class. So let's go, right? LFG, as the kids say.
Yeah. Just to touch base on some of the quarterfinal results that stood out in our area. I was at Saints Field, where Xavier had Indianola in a quarterfinal match, and I tell you, this was a pretty competitive contest. This is one that Xavier kind of broke open in the second half a little bit, but this was a tight ball game all the way through to the beginning of early in the fourth quarter. Conditions were not great. Obviously, last Friday it was rainy and cold. Indianola's pass offense probably hindered a little bit by the conditions, more so than Xavier. But Xavier was able to do just enough. Came away with if I remember right, 23-6 victory. Got out to a 10-0, a big run by Michael Cunningham on Xavier's first possession, put them up. Then they added a Cale Christensen field goal after a bad punt snap. Gave them the ball deep in Indianola territory for 10-0 lead, and it stayed that way until the very last seconds of the first half, where Indianola was able to score. So, that was big, but Xavier had 2 key interceptions that led to points. Aiden McDermott picked off kind of an underthrown ball by I think it was Bennett Brook. Returned it deep into Indianola territory. Xavier turned that into a touchdown. I believe it was Grant Helmley that scored there. And then Maverick Berger with a really big interception. I think the following series, Cale Christensen in really bad conditions had 3 field goals for the Saints. And Michael Cunningham, a big 173-yard game for Xavier. And, of course, you guys can see a feature leading into the Saints semifinal against North Scott, a rematch of a regular season matchup on the Gazette.com that JJ wrote just here recently. So make sure to check that out. And speaking of JJ, you were at the Little Rose Bowl for West Branch and MFL Marmac. That was a close game.
Yeah, that was something, Pilch. It was looked like MFL had that thing won. West Branch scored on the very first drive and went ahead 6-0, and then it just seemed like MFL kind of took over there for a while. And Andy Henson, West Branch's best player, top running back, was injured, didn't play his second half, and MFL got up, I think, 23-14 in the fourth quarter, and the momentum and everything, it just kind of looked like that was it. But give West Branch a lot of credit, especially on those on that grass field that was becoming more and more of a mud pit the deeper into the game you got, obviously, and so passing was almost impossible. And West Branch with the top running back out, the number 2 kid came in and did a nice job, and Ty Hughes did a really nice job of running kind of the read option, and that kind of worked. And before you knew it, momentum had completely changed, and West Branch scored a couple of touchdowns and a safety there, and in like a 3-4 minute span late in the game, and took the lead. And then a couple of slippery balls, kind of eluded the MFL quarterback there and on the final drive, and before you knew it, West Branch had pulled that sucker out. So, great story, as everybody knows, with Coach Butch Peterson battling cancer. Pretty cool that him and his son Lance, head coach out at Mount Vernon, are both going to the semifinals. Pretty, it's like it should be a movie, right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty special accomplishment there for both of them. And of course, you mentioned Lance Peterson, the head coach at Mount Vernon. They had a rematch with Solon in that rivalry. The Mustangs snapped, I believe it was a 19-game losing streak to the Spartans earlier this season, week 2 or week 3. Won 17-14 at Solon that week. Postseason quarterfinal at Mount Vernon this time around. Mustangs put up 17 again, but this time a 17-0 shutout for the Mustangs. So they remain undefeated going to the Dome. That's something that you probably could have won a lot of cheeseburgers from me at the beginning of the year if we made a wager on Mount Vernon being undefeated and a semifinalist this year.
Yeah, great story, great job, by everybody out there, and let's see how the Mustangs do here in the semifinals. I mean, it's just Humboldt. I think that's probably a 50-50 game, don't you think, Pilch? I think either team could probably win that, and but yeah, I mean it's just great representing Lynn County. Let's see how that thing goes. Nice and late Saturday night, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the interesting thing is, they've been doing a lot with the pass game,
Yeah,
right? Joey
yeah,
Bromberg's put up huge numbers for Mount Vernon. Um, he's spread the ball around to where it's not uncommon for him to hit 6 to 8 different receivers in a game. And when conditions were bad, their 2 touchdowns came on the ground. I mean, he still threw for 142 yards, but he had I think a 4-yard run. Jackson Hurd had the other TD run. Um, they forced four turnovers. Their defense probably gets overlooked a little bit because of what their offense does, but um, it should be a good matchup. But I think what this whole thing is going to teeter on, maybe Saturday night when they play, um, might come down to how that passing attack is handled by Humboldt's defense. I think that's the matchup that's going to be key in the semifinals. That Humboldt defense against the Mount Vernon offense.
Yeah, and give kudos to Humboldt as well because I mean they're back in this situation and they had a quarterback last year that was I'm not going to say he was their entire offense, but pretty much when it came to both rushing and passing, and he graduated and here the Wildcats are right back, in a situation here where they're playing for to go to the state championship. And you look at the game against Independence that Humboldt had in the quarterfinals, 34-26, high scoring affair. To go back to your point, Pilch, Mitchell Johnson from Independence threw for 262 yards. So you'd have to think that, and Indy had, kind of doing the math here, well over 400 yards of total offense. So you'd have to think that Mount Vernon might feel fairly confident that they'll be able to kind of let Romberg, as you said, get loose there and throw the football around a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting that Independence have been one of the hottest teams. They had won like 10 straight games, um, as well. Mitchell Johnson has been one of the top offensive performers around. Put up good numbers, but before that, the Wildcats had only been giving up like 6 points a game. North Polk might have been one of the only ones to put up double digits against them earlier. So Independence did that against a really good defense. Of course, um, you know, Mitchell Johnson's had a fantastic year. Um, but like you said, it kind of shows that hey, it can be done. And with the pass game that Mount Vernon has shown, um, that's got to be something that probably makes them feel confident that they can that they could execute that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So
So,
Waco, Waco 3-0. Just a quick first quarter update.
yep. Uh, and they have the ball about midfield now too, in their powdered blues. Um, Waco uh, gave up a touchdown just 2 plays into their quarterfinal against Montezuma, and kind of wondered if they'd even be heading back to the dome. Uh, and that sure changed quickly last week, and that quarterfinal last Thursday, didn't it? Where they just put the hammer down after that, and it was all Warriors after that opening touchdown by
Absolutely,
the
absolutely,
Braves. Great season by Montezuma as well. Um, you know, so kudos to the Braves for what they were able to do. Um, let's just uh any other quarterfinals that kind of stuck out to you. For me, I guess not maybe not necessarily that Carlisle won, but the way they did it, winning 56-28 at Liberty, that kind of surprised me a little bit. Um, North Scott with a big. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a huge upset because North Scott's one of those teams year in and year out. Um, that's always going to be a contender, but they beat Waverly Shell Rock 20-10 to set up that rematch with Xavier. Williamsburg took care of business, but anything else really kind of stand out to you from the quarterfinals?
Yeah, you talked about Carlisle. Just a relentless rushing attack. Liberty could not stop it, and I think that goes back to that whole area, right? With Indianola was part of it. It was just so strong in that one condensed area where the teams were numerous teams that were really good. So you're right, though. The spread in the Liberty game was definitely very surprising. And the rest, I don't know. It kind of went chalk. Like you mentioned, North Scott. That was a game that I think turned in the fourth quarter on a fumble. Waverly was going in for a touchdown, had like a 10-7 lead, I think. North Scott recovered, and that kind of flipped the momentum there. And North Scott scored, I think 2 touchdowns or something like that down the stretch there in the fourth quarter to win. Northland hung with West Hancock for a half before West Hancock kind of took over that football game, and
Mhm.
Prairie, Southeast Polk, I think it was exactly the same score as the regular season was, 41-0.
Yeah.
So kind of enough said there. And Grundy Center kind of really stopped East Buchanan's ground game in their Class A quarterfinal and won 20-6. And we wondered if anybody could stop East Buchanan's ground game, with 500 whatever yards it was in the previous round. But I think the
Mhm.
Bucks were held to 100 something on the ground in that game against Grundy, and that kind of told the tale there. And how about Dubuque Waller at Pilcher, right?
Yeah.
Getting to the semifinals in 2A, which is the Golden Eagles have not had a real strong tradition, I would say, in
Not for a
football.
while. Not for a couple decades. Few
Yeah,
decades. You know, I remember, when they were still a bigger school and in the '80s and early '90s, where they were a really strong, option team, but they haven't had uh, that kind of prowess in many a year, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
They're back.
100%. And it's weird to say that they're in 2A,
Yeah,
because you remember them being in the Valley all those years, right? And
right.
playing those schools. But yeah, good for Waller. Just kind of looking at the box score here, ran for almost 300 yards in a very convincing win over Crestwood. So
Yeah, that Ryan Brocious, heck of an athlete
yeah,
for Waller. The track and a baseball standout as well. If I'm thinking of the right Brocious, I know
yep, yep, yep.
they've had a couple, um, but he's a heck of an athlete, and you know, gonna be honest, we got an email from a coworker who was putting together pairings and kind of looking at our rankings and how we did as far as having 1, 2, 3, 4 in a couple classes. Um, in the semifinals, and Waller was kind of one of the outliers, and we didn't have them ranked. But after they got really kind of lambasted by Waukon, they
Yeah,
got 28-6 to Waukon, and their only other loss is to Xavier. Um, it was the only team to score there before Xavier went on their string of shutouts. Um, that that loss to Waukon appears to be a little bit of an anomaly because they bounced back, put up 63 against Olwine, 71 against Jessup, 62 against West Liberty, beat number 4 West Marshall 21-14 before beating Crestwood 41-6. Crestwood, who had beaten Walk On 2018 the week before in North Fayette Valley. And, you know, um, this might be a little bit more of a challenge for Williamsburg than some might think.
yeah. And you look also at beat Assumption, and I know Assumption was what 5-4, 4-5, whatever it was, but
Mm-hmm.
a good football team that just played a brutally hard schedule, and win to start the season convincingly, 31-14 over West Delaware, which is pretty impressive. So
Right.
yeah, like you said, beat North Fayette Valley bad. And North Fayette Valley was a decent team that made the playoffs. So yeah, for sure. Don't I'm sure Williamsburg's not overlooking the Golden Eagles here. It'll be interesting to see Williamsburg's been in that spotlight in that situation. Obviously here a lot in the last few years, and
Mm-hmm.
this kind of be a first for Waller. So we'll see how all the Golden Eagles fair under the spotlight of the UNI-Dome, I guess.
Sure. And then one other thing, a couple other things to mention, just in 5A. Um, Johnston barely survives Iowa City High in overtime the week before, right? The Dragons kind of held off the Little Hawks um, there. And so what do they do as an encore? They knock off Ankeny um, 23-13. Um, which I think surprised a lot of people. And then how about West Des Moines Valley? So, we've talked many a time about, uh, central Iowa and the suburban Des Moines schools, um, just how much those top teams are just on a tier of their own. Valley adds to that by coming over and beating Pleasant Valley and beating Cedar Falls both on the road in consecutive weeks to reach the UNI-Dome. Um, the Tigers beat Cedar Falls 27-13 in the Brian Webb Bowl,
That's
I
right.
guess you could
Webby
say.
going back to the semifinals, former Cedar Rapids Jefferson head coach. So,
Yep, or
um,
former Cedar Falls
yep, that's right.
Prep might have started his coaching career there as an assistant for, was it Pat Mitchell
Yep.
um, there, and you know was an assistant at Valley at one time. Was in Sioux City, and now back at Valley coaching again. So
That was
yeah,
the thing after doing a little research. Pilcher was this will be the first time since the Iowa High School Athletic Association sponsored playoffs, which was in 1972, was the first year. This will be the first time ever that Eastern Iowa will not be represented in the largest class semifinals. And it just so happened, the way the RPI shook out that this was a possibility. I've heard some people kind of complain a little bit because they had to make an adjustment as far as I think RPI wise, Valley and um, Sioux City East were flipped in order to not have Sioux City East play Pleasant Valley, which RPI, that's the way it shook out. But of course, I mean, you're not going to make somebody travel all the way across the state to play a game. At least the association's not. And I heard somebody say, "Well, that was ridiculous. Here you go. Look what you get because of that." But
yeah, but okay, it's not like they're sending 9-1 Southeast Polk this way.
right,
West Des Moines Valley was just barely. I didn't even have them in our top 10.
yeah, right,
They were just clinging on to the top 10 at 5-4. I understand their, I understand the point, but you know, um, my gosh, I was a 5-4 team coming over here, and yeah, they caught fire, but still, um, you know, it's not like they're sending over and not, even Johnston was 6-3. They didn't even send them over this way. Um, in the same pot. They obviously played City High, but you know what I mean? It's not like they're sending over another strong
right,
team to knock off Eastern Iowa teams. It was a team that was five
right,
and four, and only a couple spots away from. It wasn't that big of a jump
yeah.
from Sioux City. You know what I mean? So I understand their point, but I think that comes
I
off as
agree.
sour
I
grapes a little
100%
bit.
agree. And it just, this just kind of we've said it kind of all season. It's suburban Des Moines world when it comes to football at the biggest class, and everybody else just is kind of living in it right now. And uh,
Well, well, and this is something that has been coming up.
yeah,
I remember. I think maybe Lindy, you or Lindy, had conversations with like Dan Sabers,
yeah,
before we even got to the 5A situation. I think um, or maybe it was in the midst of just a few years into 5A where, Dan talked about this in
Yeah, yep,
imbalance of competitive programs, and a lot of it at the time was more Dowling
yep.
Valley. I think
Ankeny,
Ankeny, maybe Waukee at the time.
yeah,
Maybe Waukee was starting to, or no, maybe it was Ankeny right before they split. And even Bettendorf at the time. Um, those programs that just seem to have uh, just kind of had this extra effort. So it's something that's been um, around for a long time. That the haves and have-nots. It's not new,
no
but it's just getting progressively
worse.
bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. And it's to me, it's not necessarily just football. I think you're starting to see it in some of the other sports too, basketball and baseball.
Mhm.
Geez, baseball at the biggest school level is seems like it's. Although who won it? Who won 4A this past year? Pilcher.
Oh, now I have to.
Yeah, I can't even think, and I was there.
Yeah, right.
um,
Uh,
but
boy,
it
was
just seemed for years. I
John,
mean, you had
Johnson.
Urbandale and Valley and Dowling, and it just I think there was quite a streak there of suburban Des Moines schools that won state championships. So I don't know. That's something I think for the powers to be to kind of look at. Do you want to use maybe some sort of free and reduced lunch percentage thing when you try and figure out classes? Do you want to have success ratios? I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's just not like there's no perfect system, none.
Uh, Johnston beat Dowling in the
There we
finals
go.
in 4A.
All suburban Des Moines. So there you go.
Yeah, and then you had Western Dubuque in 3A, Van Meter uh, in 2A, and New London beat Remsen St. Mary's in the 1A championship. Kind of interesting. You've got Johnston and Dowling going to the Dome. You've got Van Meter at the Dome, and you got Remsen St. Mary's that will be playing later here. Um,
Yep.
so
Repeat.
you know, um, those schools having success in other sports too, like you mentioned, it extends into a lot of things. So let's get into the semifinal matchups. 8 players starts. This is being recorded on Wednesday, November 9th. They're in the second quarter right now. Waco still leads Newfonda 3-0. Uh, Waco 12-0, Newfonda 10-1. And then the later game, we mentioned top ranked Remsen St. Mary's 11-0. Lennox, their opponent at 11-0 as well. Um, then on Thursday, you're looking at Class A kicking things off at 10 a.m. with number 4 Linville Sully, 11-0 against West Hancock. We mentioned uh, got by North Lynn in the quarters. Um, West Hancock's 11-0. The 1 o'clock game, Woodbury Central 11-0 versus Grundy Center 11-0. We mentioned Grundy Center beat East Buck. And then the 4A matchups where we have Carlisle 10-1 versus Lewis Central 11-0. Um, that's the 4 o'clock game, and then you've got the 4A rematch. Number 6 North Scott at 9-2 versus number 1 Cedar Rapids Xavier at 11-0. I believe the Saints won the regular season matchup 17
Yep.
nothing. Had to pull away, and I think maybe a couple scores in the second half. Maybe it was like 3-0 or 10-0 at half. Um, but I don't know. North Scott maybe seems a little bit different since letting one slip away at Liberty. Do you think the Lancers can can kind of avenge that loss and get to the finals.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it definitely be a competitive game. Won't be decided until fourth quarter again. In my opinion,
Mhm.
it was funny, Pilch, just kind of talking to Xavier coach Dwayne Schulte a little bit yesterday when I was out there before practice, and I was like, "Does it make any difference at all that you guys played in the regular season?" And he was like, "I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, they know what we're gonna
Oh,
do.
he knows.
You
He
know,
knows.
they
He
know what we're
knows.
going to do. We know what they're going to do. Do we change what we do? Do they think that we're going to change what we do? Do we think they're going to change what they do? And he was just going back and forth. So I don't know. I would expect Xavier to win. I'll pick Xavier to win, but again, I think this could be a pretty good defensive matchup, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's going to boil down to mistakes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, I know that that's an easy out on a lot of things, but um, I think that's where somebody like a Michael Cunningham comes in big, and that somebody that's reliable that you can give the ball to, that you can kind of establish things with that offensive line. If you can do that and take some pressure off Ronan Thomas, Ronan Thomas stepping in for Alex Neal, who was fantastic for the Saints last year, right?
yeah.
But kind of a new guy stepping in. Um, I think in a situation like this, even though Xavier's been there a lot, it's going to be kind of key for uh, for them to establish the run, and then that way, Thomas can just manage the game more
Yeah.
than have to make plays
Right.
because that's when mistakes happen, right? When you try to do too
Yeah.
much, and then in this game, that might be that might be the difference.
But I was trying to remember. North Scott and Xavier met 2 years ago in the semifinals. Is that right? Was
Well,
it
is
2 years
that the
ago?
one where maybe they lost in overtime?
Yeah, I know it was. Yeah, it was a real tight game. It might have been overtime now that you mention it. Yeah. Yeah, it was the pandemic. It was a pandemic year. Yep,
Okay.
100%. And I think North Scott went on to win that thing 2 years ago too. So I mean,
Yeah.
these are like Dwayne said, these are very familiar foes that know all about each other, and they played a lot. They played before in big games, so nothing new. It'll just add to that. Add to that, I guess, Thursday night.
Right. Right. And like we mentioned, North Scott's coming off that 2010 victory over Waverly Shell Rock. It's gonna be I think this will be a good test, but
Yeah,
um, I think it's all going to come down to whether or not Xavier can run the ball. If they can run the ball, I like their chances. Um, if they struggle, if North Scott finds a way this just kind of limit that rush attack, this could be a game that goes down to the wire, and North Scott could pull it out. Is there anything stopping Lewis Central from facing the winner of these two? I know Carlisle's coming off a big win, but you know, are we looking? Are we kind of banking on Lewis Central being in the finals and possibly another lights out rematch if
yeah,
Xavier can get by North Scott?
yeah. It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? KJ. I mean, it seems like Lewis Central is really kind of turned it on here down the stretch when you look at pounding Glenwood last week, uh, which actually I think was the second time that the Titans have done that, and uh, just looks like this is a team that is really playing its best football right now, and hasn't really had a close game since what I want to say September, if I remember correctly. Um, maybe even against obviously I think it was Harlan in the first game, 30-27. And
Yeah,
then Carlisle there in week 2 though was 28-21. So we'll see if Carlisle can run the football like Carlisle did against Liberty. Uh,
yeah.
it's just anything can happen. So, we'll see. I kind of like Lewis Central there, no question about that. But yeah, don't Carlisle, I would imagine, would be able to keep this pretty close, at least for a
Uh,
while.
so on Friday, Class 1A starts things off in the morning. Number 4 West Branch, 11-0. They got by MFL Marmac in the quarters. They faced number 1 Van Meter, 10-1. Their only loss came to Williamsburg in the regular season. Williamsburg in 2A. And then the 1 o'clock game is Underwood 11-0 versus West Sioux, 10-1. You mentioned Andy Henson kind of missing the second half or part of the game in the quarterfinals. Um, what are West Branch's chances against Van Meter, and then what are they if they're not necessarily
I
100%?
think it's a tall task to say the least, and that's even if Andy Henson plays.
Uh,
I just think this Van Meter team is well, and Van Meter is what it is, right? It's one of the top small school programs around, and a team that doesn't give up many points. I mean, you look at the last 5 games, 4 shutouts, gave up 7 points to Pleasant or to Interstate 35, I guess it was in one game. So very stingy defense. To me, West Branch has got to play a perfect game and maybe get a couple of breaks, couple 3 breaks along the way to even give itself a chance. I just think Van Meter's that good.
Yeah, Williamsburg snapped. What was it, a 63 game or
Yeah,
61
winning streak. Yeah.
game win streak earlier, and Van Meter's just been dominant ever since. Um, you know, talk about good losses. Um, you know, uh, I know coaches can shy away from believing that, but sometimes you get a loss like that, um, might kind of refocus them a little
Sure.
bit. And boy, they've only given up 4.6 points per game, outscoring opponents by 41 points a contest this whole season, which includes that loss to Williamsburg. So that's going to be a tough one for sure. But West Branch has been uh, pretty darn good too. They've scored over 45 points a game. Their defense isn't too shabby either, holding teams under 10 points a game, and um, it has the makings of a good matchup. But West Branch is going to have to really put together one of its top performances to come away with a victory and get to next week's championship game. Uh, 5A, you mentioned no Eastern Iowa flavor in the 5A semifinals Friday afternoon and evening. Starts with that rivalry, West Des Moines rivalry, West Des Moines Valley and West Des Moines Dowling, 7-4 Tigers versus a 10-1 Maroons at 4 o'clock, and then at 7 o'clock, you've got number 6 Johnston against number 2 Southeast Polk, 8-3, 10-1. JJ, who do you like coming out of those two games?
I got Dowling and Southeast Polk. I ranked them down the stretch. I think 1, 2, and I can't even remember who I ranked 1 and who was 2. I think it was Dowling might have been 1. So I think that they're on a collision course uh for the championship game here, and I'd be very surprised, quite honestly, if either one of these games is terribly close. To be quite honest with you, and I'm not trying to slight Valley or Johnston, but I mean Valley's 7-4 and Johnston's 8-3, so uh,
This
congrats to get to this point, but it's a real tall tale, in my opinion. Again, for both of those clubs going into the semifinals Friday and Friday night.
Sure. Uh, just a little update. Waco is now 11-0 on
11.
Noel Fonda. So the Warriors looking to get to the championship game, and they're off to a good start here, still in the first half. Saturday, the semifinals in 2A are in the morning. You've got Dubuque, Wahlert, and Williamsburg. Wahlert 9-2, Williamsburg 11-0, and been as impressive and dominant as anybody in the entire state, regardless of class. They kick off at 10 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock, you've got OABCIG 10-1 and Central Lyon 11-0. There at 1 o'clock. I tell you what, um, I think you look at the results that Williamsburg has had, and you think, you know, hey, pencil them in the finals. Wallert's going to be a tough. I think Wallert's going to be a tough out. And I say that as being one of the people that kind of wrote them off after that loss to Waukon. But appears to be a kind of a blip after two good postseason wins, especially that one against West Marshall, 21-14. But the Raiders, definitely have had one of their best seasons. And was it the third time in 4 years they're making the trip up to the Unidome, up 380. They know the route well.
About time they win one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's looking for that first title for Kurt Ritchie. So it'd be nice. It'd be nice for them to get that.
Yeah, and obviously you look at some of the individuals on that Williamsburg team. Carson Hudapole, we did something a couple weeks back on him. He missed last season with a knee injury. Tore his ACL the year before as a sophomore in the, I believe up in the unit, or no, I was in the quarterfinals. I think the game they lost, on the last play to West Liberty. Um, you know, um, he was shooting around. I believe he was shooting around playing hoops with his dad in the spring after he had surgery, and kind of felt something go wonky with it. A little bit later, running routes with his dad, playing catch another weekend, and realized the swelling wasn't going away. Had to go in and get another surgery. Found out he tore his ligament again. So he had two surgeries and had to miss the entire season last year, which included a trip to the Dome. He's back. The first game he went from running back to the quarterback position, and it's really powered this Williamsburg offense. Derek Weisskopf is a good receiver, but on the defensive side, I think he's got like 6 interceptions on a really fast, aggressive, tough defense that you've kind of gotten equipped or kind of gotten used to seeing Williamsburg put out there. So, like their chances, but I think it'll be a good could be a competitive game there with Waller Saturday morning. And then Saturday night to cap things off, it's 3A. You've got ADM at 10-1 versus Harlan 10-1. And then Humboldt 10-1 against Mount Vernon Mustangs at 11-0. Of course, we kind of mentioned that 10-1 with Harlan. That one loss was to Lewis Central the very first week of the season, where it went down to the very, very end. So two of the top teams in their respective classes, and that's where Harlan's only upset or setback has come from. But we talked a little bit about Humboldt, Mount Vernon, but Are they going to be pretty much battling it out for a chance to see the little Cyclones in the finals?
Yeah, Harlan beat ADM in the regular season. I think it was 42-7, I want to say. So I mean, overwhelming favorite. To me, it's Harlan's class to lose, quite frankly, and that's
Mm-hmm.
again, not taking anything away from any of the other three teams that are in the semifinals here, but I think Harlan is clearly the top dog right now, and I think again it would take a gargantuan effort by somebody to knock him off, quite honestly, and who knows, maybe somebody will put one of those up. So
Sure. Yeah, anything can happen. And what's happening right now, Newell Fonda just scored a touchdown to pull within 11-7 with 5:42 to go in the second quarter. So how about that? Some breakdowns and even some live
that's
updates.
right.
Um,
So Waco's got a field goal and then went for 2 points after the touchdown.
yep, completed a
Wow.
conversion pass
Wow.
there. And let's, you know, if we're going to talk about like all around players, how about Simeon Reichenbach for
Waco.
Waco?
Yeah.
Uh, he runs the ball. He's throwing passes. He's a heck of a defensive player. I think he drives the team. I think he drove the team bus up to Cedar Falls. Did washed all the jerseys after the quarterfinal game against Montezuma. And I think he's also cooking the team meal for the after season award ceremony. So
If he wants to come up here and finish my raking out my leaves after done to this afternoon, he can feel free. So
but he seems to be one of those guys that does a little bit of everything
yep,
for their
yep,
teams. So it'll be interesting. So JJ, you've got the West Branch game
yep. Friday
um,
morning, and you're taking
Friday.
the rest. Yep, you bet. So
I'll make a day of it up there on Saturday with the Williamsburg Wahlert game at 10 a.m. on Saturday, and then Mount Vernon Humboldt Saturday night. I have Xavier and North Scott's rematch Thursday evening, and then like we mentioned, you can see the Xavier preview that JJ put together on Michael Cunningham, a little feature there on Xavier's senior running back and linebacker, and then um, I I'm planning on a Mount Vernon feature on a senior um, Clayton Flock. Um, Interestingly, I don't believe he played football and as an eighth grader. Um, really, kind of just put in the work and time, and uh, he stepped in as a starting center this year and starting middle linebacker and or inside linebacker, and is fourth on the team in tackles and has really become a one of those key components of what Mount Vernon does offensively and defensively. So goes to
outstanding.
show you, you don't have to be that junior high, you know,
But yep.
junior high stud, or even just put in the work and you'll get your chance. You know, and it pays off one way or another. So look forward to that. Uh,
I'll
be
have my plan is to talk to West Branch quarterback Ty Hughes sometime tonight and write something on him. He was starting QB at Liberty last year as a sophomore and made the move over to West Branch where his grandfather is one of the assistant coaches for the Bears. So looking forward to talking to Ty and telling you maybe a little bit about him leading into their game on Friday morning. So
and a heck
there
of
we
a
go.
season he's had there for the
Yep.
Bears as well. So make sure to check out all of our coverage previews. Jeff Linder has capsules of our area teams and their games already at thegazette.com, but make sure to catch all our game coverage, all our previews. And as we mentioned, Linder's capsules. At thegazette.com. You can follow JJ at JEJE66 on Twitter, and I'm at KJ Pilcher as well for live in-game updates. And any parting words? Any last words of wisdom?
I have rarely ever had words of wisdom, so I'm going to let you do what you always do to take us out. Thanks, folks. Thank you, KJ.
For Jeff Johnson, for Nathan Ford, for Hercules at my side. Enjoy football this weekend at the UNI-Dome. And remember, keep your head on a swivel.